Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Once again, thank you everyone for attending. Today's webinar is on order-to-cash optimization as part of your digital transformation strategy, brought to you by Datasource Consulting, an EXL company. Our speaker today is Solomon Williams, Datasource's Director of EDM Solutions. But first, let me tell you just a little bit about Datasource Consulting and how and why we know about this topic. Solomon, could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So we are a pure play enterprise data management, modern data architecture, and decision intelligence consulting firm. We offer both strategic services like data governance, vendor evaluation, and data virtualization, and implementation work in architecture, cloud, and BI, data quality, decision intelligence, and MDM. So in 2016, we were acquired by EXL Service as a part of their analytics arm. So with that partnership, we can now offer end-to-end solutions from managing enterprise data to providing the deeper business insights. And as far as how we deliver, we divide our services into two categories. We have our strategic work in data governance, vendor tool evaluation, data virtualization, and program establishment. And then we have the implementation arm with the engineers and the architects who work with internal client teams to deliver on those recommendations we make through our strategy work. This includes data architecture, cloud and BI, and decision intelligence, data quality, and MDM. So let me introduce our speaker today, Solomon Williams. Solomon has over 20 years of experience in enterprise data management with an emphasis on a number of practices, including enterprise data architecture, MDM, data governance, quality, data integration, and data warehousing. He brings a combination of both strategic and technical skills with a proven track record of driving growth, reducing costs, and implementing solutions for complex business problems. Solomon's experience also expands multiple industries, including financial services, insurance, consumer goods, oil and gas, and healthcare. So again, thank you all so much for joining today. We're happy to have you with us. And I do want to mention that if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you are free to utilize the Q&A panel at the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. We'll go ahead and address those questions at the end of the session. And then feel free, of course, to reach out to us after the webinar as well through our website or through the contact information. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Solomon.
And thank you. Thank you so much, Allison. We greatly appreciate that intro and background on Datasource, now an EXL company. And good morning, everyone. I am Solomon Williams, and as Allison gave a wonderful introduction, we're going to be talking about today order to cash and the order to cash process and the solution that Datasource has brought to the market and has achieved a good deal of success in partnering with a number of clients. So given that, we're going to jump right into it. And as Allison made mention, if you have any questions or comments at all, please feel free to use the little comment section in the bottom of the screen, and we will absolutely address them. And if you'd like to reach out further and have a more detailed discussion, we're happy to do so. You can follow up at any time, even after the webinar concludes. So with that, we're going to talk about order to cash. So order to cash, regardless of whatever industry you're in, is a fundamental business process of every organization. I mean, literally speaking, it's exactly how a customer receives their product or service that your organization provides, and how your organization recognizes and receives the cash for that service and product. And for many, many organizations, this process is nearly a full manual operation. Now, there might be applications that do assist various capabilities as you go across, but to a great degree, it's almost completely manual. And then when you compound that with siloing the activities of the end-to-end process, it is highly error-prone. Human error is just something that creeps in, and even over a period of time, application to application interfacing and integration, they also develop defects over time. And what we're showing here is that end-to-end, that sales order processing all the way through the application of cash, and these various components or sub-processes, if you will, that go in and complete that order to cash cycle. That's sales order processing, credit management, order fulfillment, invoicing, collections, payment processing, and exceptions. And if you want to even break this down into manageable chunks, if you will, you can divide order to cash into two broad categories: the order management and payment, or better known as bill to cash. But these two components together are what recognizes order to cash, and we're going to talk about this entire cycle today. Now, why is this so error-prone? For the most part, it's because there's multiple steps, there's human intervention, and there, again, are many, many system-to-system integrations. And when information and data is passed, the more hops it takes, regardless if that's automated or if that's individual with human intervention, the more hops, the more probability there is going to be error. And it can have a cascading effect. So a lack of information or a latency that's too high at one part upstream of the process can have a cascading impact at each subsequent step down the process. And it can result in significant delays, and it can impact the recognition of revenue. It can impact the application of cash. It can impact your customer perception of how well they are at the center of your business. Are you really customer centric? And that is one thing that is very, very difficult to get back, is that customer satisfaction. So when you look at the sales order process on down to cash application, you can see just highlighted some of the challenges that might be present, whether there's multiple order channels, which can lead to discontinuity in invoicing, incorrect invoice details, collection and reconciliation processes moves through many, many hands to understand if this is a valid collection, how do we get the client to collect, how do we reconcile different exceptions in the sales order process that the customer may take or the carrier may take. And then obviously the delays in cash application. The application of cash, what can result in frozen or locked up operating funds, which just can't be gotten to, which also have a ripple effect downstream. And the more of these collateral and ancillary activities occur and handoffs, there are more points of inefficiency and additional costs and additional points of revenue leakage. So when we say optimizing that process, OTC as a standard has several key functioning areas. And in optimizing this process, there are some additional areas that are going to be needed. So what you see across the top is where we identify earlier the core areas of order to cash as it's generally understood. One of the aspects of our solution that we bring about is pricing. And we bring in pricing as an area of focus. Having a dedicated pricing function integrated with OTC, it's critical. And in many organizations, we found this highly manual, and it's disconnected from the primary OTC process. Process integration. Integrating these activities across the OTC lifecycle is a major component to optimization. Looking at whether the integration has too high a latency, meaning that it takes too much time for system A to move that information to system B, or it's a matter of email, or it's a matter of phone call, or it's a matter, in some cases, text message. That process integration and how that occurs needs to be optimized. And having the ability to group activities related to a specific function is critically important. The data management and integration piece. This is the heart and backbone of optimizing your your order to cash process. Ensuring that the critical data is moved across the OTC lifecycle is foundational. There are three core aspects that we're going to look at, which is master data management, data quality, data governance, and an overall modernized data architecture. And I know how that sounds, but it's not, it's not an approach to say, oh, you need to go out and spend all. No, that's not the case. It's leveraging to the degree possible the investments that have been made already. But it's a matter of coordinating them, organizing them in a process that not only identifies the key areas which need to be addressed. Because in every organization, it's not that, oh, your OTC process is broken. No. But what we have found in our deep experience is that there are certain areas that are more prone to issues than others. Absolutely, pricing is one of them. Invoicing, collections, payment processing. Those that we found are the highlight of where most organizations have gaps. And by understanding and prioritizing how to address them in a pragmatic and effective manner, you will see immediate returns on that investment and operating funds getting loosened up, the reduction of having to acquire bad debt. There are a number of hard dollar benefits that are returned in focusing on those areas. The last component that I want to mention in this optimizing of order to cash is automation and analytics. It's another key enabler. The automation component is key from an error reduction perspective by removing redundant and manual activities. And the analytics component creates a feedback loop and gives you a finger on the pulse of the process and capability which most organizations lack. Most organizations only recognize there's an order to cash issue when they begin to see symptoms of it. Well, you know, there's a number of exceptions that are being put through. There are delays in cash application. There are delays in collections and payment processing. Why are we not invoicing accurately? Because we have a number of invoices we have to revisit because either the pricing wasn't effective or it was sent to the wrong office, it was sent to the wrong person. By having a proactive model of analytics that are looking at this information, whether that's daily, weekly, or monthly, and having that feedback loop to be able to correct those defects and discrepancies as they creep up is one of the key aspects in maintaining a healthy order-to-cash process. So one of the bigger questions we get is the juice worth the squeeze? Streamlining the order-to-cash process is absolutely worth doing for the hard dollar benefits. It's a complex initiative, true, because of all the process it touches, from everything from sourcing to delivery. But cost savings that have actually been documented from a process integration, from a maturity perspective, businesses who have adopted a best-in-class OTC are 80% more effective at order management than those that haven't, and on average have increased sales by 30% and margins by 20%. From a data management perspective, OTC optimization is dependent upon data reliability, accuracy, and streamlining the connectivity, integration, data quality, and data governance. That's what's at the bottom of that. Incomplete and untimely data management can be one of the biggest cost factors, and it's one of the things that every organization has the capability of correcting. And it doesn't have to be a major lift where we have to do this overnight. That's not the objective. The objective is to be able to prioritize the process areas that need address, putting in a pragmatic and effective plan to address those in priority. And by doing so in that affected, roadmapped, planned manner, you will absolutely see the return on investment and the hard dollar benefits faster than most organizations recognize. The last key component, automation. When it comes to OTC, automation and streamlining has a massive impact on efficiency and reliability. When invoicing is accurate over 95% of the time, when exceptions are proactively managed and clearly documented and understood, and perhaps even the exception allowances printed on the invoice, when you have the availability to look at and have a more accurate forecast of cash flow and the ability to know when that cash is going to be applied, that raises profitability. It absolutely does. So just a quick food for thought. Providers of logistics and transportation services, LTS, they're the lifeblood of companies that buy bulk materials and ship products. At the same time, any slowdown or glitches and inefficiencies in these services not only are maddening the CFOs because they land squarely on the bottom line, but they have a ripple effect throughout the organization. If you're responsible for operations, if you're responsible for replanning, if you're responsible for inventory management and supply chain optimization, all of these things are going to have a direct impact, because one area of pressure will absolutely affect the adjacent area. And this is one of the key things brought out in this article in CFO Magazine. So what are the drivers for order to cash? There's really two groups. The first group we're going to talk about is cost efficiency and optimization. And that's better visibility and control, reducing operational cost, cash flow improvements, improved customer experience, improved balance sheet metrics, and increasing bad debt. When that doesn't mean that you want to increase bad debt, but these are the factors that are considered, like, well, we have increasing bad debt. And what exactly does that mean? Well, what that means is a lot of organizations find themselves in a situation where their funds are locked up in collections. They're locked up in late cash application. They're locked up because invoices didn't get out on time and accurately. And because of that, because of those delays, the operating funds have been reduced. Those funds just aren't available. So they have to go to their banks and lending institutions and financial institutions, and they get short-term float loans. Those loans have a high percentage rate. The cost of cash is what we're talking about by that increasing bad debt. That decreases profitability significantly, because obviously you have to pay the interest. That cost of that loan eats into your margin. So that's what we mean by increasing bad debt. And on this side, again, there's another that we're going to show on the other side for drivers for order to cash optimization. But here is some of the bigger drivers that we see in many organizations. Now, growth and expansion is the other side. So if you consider wanting to be able to be more profitable within the boundaries of the organization that exists today, and squeezing every nickel out of the process that we know is locked up there, that's one side. Now, here's the other side, is growth and expansion. From a growth and expansion perspective, digital transformations and cloud enablement, #1 driver. BPO or shared service transition, #2. Organizations that look and say, well, you know what? Let's focus on what we do well and providing services to our customer. And this might be an area of opportunity for us to outsource this or have another third-party manager services for us. Well, if that's the case, this is an excellent run-up to that. Because any third-party or BPO organization that looks at the process, they're like, okay, well, we're going to need 90 days to baseline, and we're going to have to understand the gaps in the process, and then how many people it's going to take to manage the process through the day, how many people it's going to take to manage all of the exceptions. By streamlining the process prior to that outsourcing, gives you a greater capability of reducing even your overall cost for outsourcing, because it puts these things into a streamline, and you can proactively manage how you want these issues to be addressed, in what order they need to be addressed. Then there's revenue and profitability strategies, growth and revenue, credit covenants and compliance, and then obviously mergers and acquisitions. Now, again, we have the same icon here, because mergers and acquisitions on paper are supposed to bring in growth, additional profitability, bigger market segment, greater wallet share, not if there are significant gaps in the OTC process. If there are significant gaps in the OTC process from one organization to the next, and they're brought together, we've just compounded the issue. And that profitability, that revenue recognition, that growth will not be recognized if we're dumping it into the abyss of these gaps of our OTC process. Now, before you begin, it's not a trivial matter. That's, we want to be very clear about that. In undertaking this effort, it's best to align on a few things. #1, don't be afraid of the complexity. OTC optimization is a complex undertaking, and it's complex for a reason. It touches every process, nearly every process in the organization, but especially from sourcing all the way through financial protection, all the way through accounting. There will be periods known of discontinuity. There will be unknowns that must be addressed, but ensure that you take your time to plan and that you over-communicate. By over communicating, you will always be ahead of the curve. No one will be wanting for information. And even if it's something that hasn't been solved yet, by over communicating the steps that you're taking to get through the process will alleviate a lot of that apprehension. A strategy is not enough. An OTC optimization strategy without a realistic sense of what can be achieved is no strategy at all. You may have a plan that you've planned down to the nth degree of resource availability, the last dollar available, and every hour in the day. But if it's not realistic for your organization, if your organization's appetite for change is limited due to other ongoing enterprise programs, lack of availability of SMEs, plan effectively and make sure that there's what the organization can absorb from a change perspective. Number 3, data is the bedrock. And that is a fact. It doesn't matter if you go out and buy the most expensive system or application or software out there, it still comes down to the data. What is the future state data management capability of the organization? Where are we starting from? What are we aiming toward? Because you have to factor in data quality, data governance, the availability of that data, which comes down to the trust of that data. Data is foundational, and data governance, data quality, master data management, and a modernized data architecture are the key components, and we're going to discuss those a little bit further down the line in the presentation. Pick the right OTC integration approach. If anyone says that, oh, well, we have a standard method for optimizing order to cash, I'd be leery of that because that's a myth. There is an approach, there is a methodology that can be standardized, absolutely. But every organization is different. And it's going to take time to determine this organization, the proper integration model, and that needs to be determined by a few factors. One, what is the level of maturity sought? What is the level of data management capability needed to support that level of maturity? And the current state of the targeted business process. Those are just 3 key factors that have to be considered that says, where do we want to land? We don't want to be, and there's no need to have an OTC process from end to end that is the Taj Mahal, that is the ivory tower. The idea of optimizing your order to cash is prioritizing your areas of focus, understanding which areas are going to have the most significant impact and need to be addressed, building a pragmatic plan that over time perfects the OTC process. You're not getting to perfection, but it improves, it perfects over time. Now, there are many other trade-offs and priorities, obviously, that factor into it, but it's key to understand and start from a realistic point of where we are and have a realistic understanding of where we want to go, to what level of maturity do we want to achieve. So, success with order to cash is dependent upon a holistic approach. Planning the integration, data management, automation, and analytics. Those are the 4 key aspects of our solution that we believe brings multiple successes in multiple areas, and we're going to demonstrate that as we go through. Number 1, the OTC integration strategy. Ours has 3 components. There's the organizational alignment component, there is choosing the best integration model, and defining a realistic process integration strategy. Now, the organizational alignment is understanding the data requirements, process delivery needs, and priorities of each group involved in the OTC process. You can't start with assuming that, you know what, we're going to build it and everybody will love it. We have learned through many, many decades, and I think the industry learned, that the whole model of if you build it, they will come does not work. You need to understand what the requirements are, how to align those with data requirements, process delivery needs from an end-to-end perspective to get a full view. Understand how the organization is aligned. Understand what's the best integration model. There are a number of factors in determining the likelihood of success of optimization, depending on the integration strategy. Then the process integration strategy. understand how the coordination of activities across the departments. One of the key things that we found is that there might be a high-level anecdotal understanding of the activities and the process steps involved in OTC. But once we get in and discover and start mapping that and documenting it, there's much more disjointedness than was understood. And it became clear here in invoicing is a bigger challenge. In collections, this is a challenge because the data is not available or the data is not accurate, or the pricing model that we used for this client was applied to the wrong client. Those are some of the challenges we see. And by organizing it, again, understanding what the organizational needs are, choosing the best integration model, and then determining what the process integration strategy is, are bedrock in getting started in determining your OTC optimization process. Organizational alignment is the most critical. These activities can span multiple departments, and every department has their own data requirements, process delivery needs, and priorities. Now, if you look at the bottom of the screen, what we have here is just some of the points that we addressed. From sales order, multi-channel inbound flow needs to be coordinated with credit management, order fulfillment, and invoicing. This are the data and that information that needs to be passed to credit management, order fulfillment, and invoicing. Invoicing is dependent on accurate order data, the proper credit terms, and the complete correct order being delivered. The group responsible for generating the invoice needs to be aligned with the initial order and the submission of the order. From payment processing, managing lockbox payments, short pays without documentation, payments made from subsidiaries for parent organization, these challenges will impact cash application, which impacts exceptions. And so you can just see that, again, not only is it cascading if these things aren't there, but by understanding what the organizational alignment is, understanding what their data needs are, what their process delivery needs are, and what their priorities are. This is kind of why this is complex. These things need to be understood. And again, the objective is not to say we're going to fix this entire thing in one fell swoop. That's unrealistic, and that's not the point. I'm going to keep underscoring that. What we're advocating is understanding which area is the priority for address. Start there, but understanding what the knock-on effect is going to be so that your plan can be pragmatic and effective and realistic. Choosing the right process integration model. This is another key decision. What is the scope? That is going to drive. So you can say, you know what, we're only going to integrate the back-end order to cash process. Or we're going to integration of back-end order to cash processes and automation of eligible secondary processes. And then here's the big boy. Full integration of core order to cash processes and automation of eligible secondary processes. As you can see, there are levels of complexity as you go up this model. This one, where you're only integrating the back-end processes, is the least complex to plan. Then you have moderate complexity, then you have most complex. And again, most organizations are, and we advise, first discover what are the gaps in your OTC process, what is going to be the most effective in achieving better profitability, higher degree of customer satisfaction, and a way that you can improve over time. It's not, again, not one size fits all. We can't tell every customer, go with the least, go with the mid-complex, or go with the most complex. It's about understanding the organization, appetite for change, where you're currently at from current state processes, what are you looking to achieve. But the key decision is OTC optimization will absolutely drive higher profitability and reduce expense. That is a fundamental, regardless of which model of complexity or level of maturity you aim at. The process integration strategy. This is the next level down. These processes need to be coordinated by activities which span the multiple departments. So if you look at sales order processing and credit management, order fulfillment, invoicing, all the way through, each one of these are connected. That's why they're part of the process. But what is it that they need? Credit management needs validated item, validated customer, validated pricing. The cash application requires validated item, validated customer, validated credit terms, and valid exceptions. And then when you get to invoicing, the item, customer processing, order configuration. The data that's required is not in the same order of priority. It's not in the same latency. But understanding how your organization operates, how their process is modeled and affected, will determine what is the latency of the data that's required, and how do we put more robustness and quality and governance around that data to ensure that data is provided in the time that it's expected. So data management, here's another piece of food for thought. The logistics industry might be the very sector that could get the most out of big data and business intelligence if it knows how to take the best advantage out of it. The hugeness of flows handled every day with all the shipments, weights, sizes, contact details, and returns is generating an incredible amount of data that must be managed. This was from DataPine. Now, the reason that we focus very heavily on transportation and logistics in this model is because to date, it's one of the bigger pieces of a supply chain in every organization, whether you have your own logistics and OTC capability, whether you contract that out, whether you have a business partner. But this is effective across banking and financial services. This is hospitality and gaming. This is energy, oil and gas. This applies to healthcare as well, a little bit different. But the transportation and logistics industry was one of the key areas where we landed this initially and saw an immediate uptick in customers as well as their customer profitability and success of this plan. And again, given that it's such a key component and aspect of anyone's supply chain, is the reason why there's such a heavy focus here. So when we talk about data management, one of the key things that we talked about was master data management, data quality, data governance, and an overall optimized modern data architecture. Now, master data management value to the OTC is significant because one of the fundamental aspects of it is to have that trusted single source of data. And just for those that are not familiar, as whether it's external data or other internal data comes in, this data is grouped into either master domains, customer service routes, contracts, or reference data, relationships, service codes, finance codes, and what have you. And this could be real-time streaming or batch delivery data. Now, if you look at these various tools, I know many organizations, well, we have CRM, we have ERP, we have order fulfillment, we have invoicing applications, that does all that. They're not MDM tools, number one, and they do not have MDM capabilities. And we can stack the chips as high as you like. From a CRM and ERP, they do what the customer relationship management and entity relationship management applications, that's what they do. They are not designed to do master data management. The MDM capability enables the standardization and linking of all customer names, the standardization and management and maintenance of company relationships. They are the single source of management and maintenance of pricing and credit terms, and enables the single source of management of location of contract types and terms. These are significant. And this is why CRM applications, ERPs, order fulfillments, and invoicing don't live up to the challenge of OTC operating in an optimized manner, because it's a key component that many organizations, oh, well, no, my CRM application will do it. No, it doesn't. And neither does ERP or these other systems. A master data management component is critical. Data quality. Data quality is one of these things that you hear about all the time. It's ubiquitous in where you hear it, but it's still one of the things many, 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 many organizations still do not manage effectively. The financial impact of poor data quality for a single organization can cost upwards of $9.7 million per year. And they're not just solely financial. They're loss of reputation and customer satisfaction, missed opportunities, and higher risk decisions because of low confidence in data. And if you look at the cycle where we see that bigger issues, whether it's the product data is not right, customer data is not right, the time, the place, the condition, the quantity, the cost, all of these things factor into the OTC process of areas where we've seen quality have an abysmal level. And that's why we call it the 7 R's. Alternatively put, poor data quality, you need to put it on your P&L. It's going to cost you. And having poor data quality is a factor for higher costs. And it's just that simple. Data governance. Data governance is another key component. I know every organization hears the need for data governance, the want of data governance, the drivers for data governance. Here is an example where data governance will absolutely drive higher revenue, higher profitability, and can demonstrate a return on investment. A properly implemented data governance program will improve the quality and availability of data as it moves through the connected systems. It adds stability to the process, which can be promoted to AI-enabled processes, again, reducing the amount of human intervention, and by having those things repeated in simple decisions that can be made. Data governance drives down operational costs across several dimensions. Here, business processes are, it's illustrated, they rely on applications. Applications rely on good data. Good data relies on data governance. And as you can see, as the data areas that are moved in between each component of order to cash, this is where data governance earns its pay. This is where it demonstrates that return on investment. It is the foundational aspect. If data is the bedrock, the governance of that data is what is under it and which makes it valid. Modernized data architecture is key. And what it means is it needs to be flexible. As you can see, we're not focused very heavily here on technology. We're not advocating buying software. We're not advocating buying new technology stacks. We're advocating process, capability, maturity, and data. That's what we're advocating. And a modern data architecture addresses these things by having a flexible ability to change and adapt to market changes, to changes in direction, new product introductions. A modernized data architecture treats data as a shared asset. It interfaces to consume the data and to integrate the data and to share the data. It establishes a common vocabulary. It establishes a capability for data curation. It reduces the number of repositories of data copies throughout the organization, and gaps in the quality of that data throughout the organization. And it focuses on data integration, not data consolidation. And just really quickly here, many organizations think, oh, well, you know what, we have a data warehouse, or we have a data lake, and we have these reporting capabilities. But if you look closer, what we found is that there's data that's been consolidated. They've been brought into the data warehouse. They've been brought into the data lake, but that data is not integrated. They're still sitting in loosely coupled disparate tables or distributed file system from a big data perspective. That data has no integration. And by not integrating that data, you're still putting the onus on the consumer to put that data in, to put that data together as best as they can, whether through a reporting or a visualization tool or what have you. And when that occurs, without a common vocabulary, without any metadata of what it is that they're looking at and what it is that they're using, you're literally telling you, yeah, this is self-service, but it's also self-service that you have to figure out what it is. And again, you are just laying the groundwork. You are framing a lack of insight. You're framing a lack of confidence, and you're framing cost, a higher cost by doing so. So automation. And we're going to move through this section fairly quickly. because I do want to get to the analytics and didn't want to save some time for questions. Again, please, if you have any questions or comments, we do want to retain some time towards the end. And if you'd like to reach out where we can have a deeper conversation about these various aspects and how they're brought to bear, we're absolutely happy to do that. So everybody hears about AI. AI, machine learning, you can't turn a corner, you can't turn a page without, somebody talking about AI and you need AI for this, you need AI for that. What we found is that that's not wholly inaccurate, but understanding how AI will fit in, and specifically for order to cash, we have a framework where we look at just a few components: machine learning and advanced analytics, smart workflow, natural language generation, NLP or natural language process, and cognitive agents. This is the framework that we look at for order to cash, and it is a small subset of the plethora of AI and machine learning capabilities that are out there. But these are the ones that we found are most effective in improving order to cash from optimization. The AI in the order to cash process, as you can see, we actually frame it out here, which AI tools and what capabilities in each area can these AI tools help. So you might have RPA, sales order processing, you have RPA, smart workflow, cognitive agents, and machine learning and analytics. NLP, not listed here. If you look at order fulfillment, you're looking more so at machine learning and advanced analytics, again, on delivering of products and providing services. And so we framed this out because our solution looks at these capabilities and it says, you know what, this is the best application. And again, not every one size fits all. This is what we found works best in most organizations. But in working with your organization, we're going to collaboratively address maybe that doesn't work in your organization, or maybe a different component does. But the accelerators that we have as part of the solution address that by giving us a starting point. And then the automation journey. We leverage a systematic approach to embracing RPA into the enterprise, and it was one of the areas of call out specifically because everybody is confused. Well, how does this robotic programming automation really work? How does it actually get implemented? And so we do have a systematic approach to embracing RPA into the enterprise, how to get it done. Developing an automation strategy, roadmap, prioritization, areas of higher benefit, pragmatic effect. And then we maintain and support it. It's something that we know that this is critical as we go through. So analytics, we're going to talk about analytics. Similar to having an AI framework, you have to have an analytics framework. You can't just, you should not think that every area is going to leverage the same analytics, the same type of analytics. You have diagnostic analytics, you have prescriptive analytics, you have prescriptive analytics. There is a methodology, there is a maturity, a level of maturity there. And understanding which analytics work best in which area is critical. It's a critical component. And so we have a framework, part of our solution, that helps us address which ones are required and how they work in a given functional area for a given purpose. And we apply those analytics and we build them out similar in the way that we do our RPA framework when we address it. When you look at things like AI and machine learning, RPA and analytics, they are very, very, very tightly related. And understanding how they're coordinated in an organization can not only save you time, save you money, and get you faster to the insights that you've been pining for, but it also, again, puts you on a path for constant improvement and constant growth. Analytics improving revenue is a key aspect of it. We have some key points that are called out here. Value of how this improves revenue specifically, whether it's by working capital improvement, reducing and streamlining processes, basis point reductions through margin, and these are taken from real examples of where this has been applied. Now, when we talk about the analytics categories of order to cash, again, the key thing is building out a dashboard by creating that feedback loop that understands where are you from a daily perspective, weekly perspective, monthly perspective. And it's a little bit more finer grained than some of your aggregates that you'll pull from a data warehouse or a data lake from a query, just simple queries and things along that line. These are accelerators that we have that we bring to bear as part of our solution. Receivables analysis, disputes, cash analysis, day sales outstanding forecast, DSO, cash flow, customer churn, and then analyzing that. Whether it's overdue, collector efficiency, payment term analysis, and risky customer alerts. And, you know, we have two components here that we believe are significant. One is obviously the DSO forecast, the day sales outstanding forecast. The other one is DSO analysis, where we drill down into that. So this is part of the analytics framework, a dashboard that we believe is significant, not only to monitoring existing processes, but being proactive to be able to take action in case something is amiss, defects begin to creep in. How do you begin to address it? And these insights that are available through the order to cash, again, not every functional area will require the same types of analytics. And again, this is just an outline of, or a highlight of the dashboard that we shown earlier, and which areas which areas would be focused on as a part of that dashboard. One of the key aspects also that we want to share is about proactive change management. This is something that many organizations miss, and they fail to recognize that every organization is different. Every organization has a different appetite for change, and they have a different amount of what they can absorb. And in understanding that, how do you effectively apply that? And that has to come through change management. This is the people component. The data, the technology, things are easy. But again, working and helping people understand and adopt what it is that you're bringing about is a key component to it. And having a change management strategy is an absolute component. As far as our solution goes, we bring in this change management component to really be able to drive the adoption and the necessity of it. One of the last things I want to touch on simply is just how do you approach it? How do we approach it? How does our solution get affected? Well, we start with an assessment. We look at process, organization, data, your automation maturity, and your analytics maturity. We begin to look at your process design, and that's where we get into the design and architect, how the organizational design is impacted, your data management design, automation, and the analytics roadmap. Lastly, an implementation would necessarily follow in a phased approach by understanding what the priorities are, what the key areas of that need to be addressed. How do we improve the data first, and how those processes and activities are going to get impacted, and what is the revenue and profitability targets that we are aiming towards. It's, again, it's a very simple and pragmatic approach to addressing a complex issue where the devil's in the details, as they say. There's a lot of complexity involved in the assessment, in the design and architect, and in the implementation phases. But again, it's not a matter of doing it all at once. It's a matter of understanding what the roadmap is and how and on what curve does an organization need to mature. That brings us towards the end. So thank you for understanding and taking the time with us to go through order to cash. This is a very high level overview, given that we only had an hour, and we wanted to make sure that we shared the most significant aspects of it. There is a lot more detail that is germane to this particular solution, and we're happy to share that with you if you'd like to have a follow-up conversation. More than willing to take you through, or if you want to focus in one specific area, happy to do that as well. So with that, given that we have aimed just 4 minutes over where my targeted time is, are there any questions that would like to be addressed, or are there any comments that would like to be addressed?
Thanks, Solomon. That was a great presentation as always from you, so we appreciate your time. We did have one question come through. This one is how might this process vary, if it will vary at all, between different industries?
The process, it's a very good question. So if you look at financial services, if you look at insurance or healthcare, gaming, or even energy for that matter, every organization provides a service or product. And if you're looking at mortgages or the payment of mortgages, the payment of credit cards, if you're looking at that, let's use that as an example. The order to cash process still has a great many similarities in that you are providing a product and you are providing a service. Banks, financial institutions still look at payments, whether it's a mortgage payment, credit card payment, loan payment, they still forecast those amounts. They still have the ability to apply cash. They still have the need to calculate interest rates and send out bills. When those things, and there have been challenges with those in the past that we've helped a number of organizations with, we found that it's not specifically addressed as order to cash, but the invoicing, credit terms and credit terms and interest rate payment calculations, forecast, collections, payment terms, all those things still remain the same. And in each one of those organizations, across those industries, we found those similarities still require address in how they get calculated, how that information is shared, how that information is integrated.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Solomon. That was it for the questions for now. Again, if any of you do have any that you think of after the session, feel free to reach out to Solomon or myself through the website. We will send a recording of this to everyone that registered for the webinar, and we'll post it to our website as well. So thank you again. Thank you, Solomon. We were happy to have you with us, and we'll see you for the next webinar.
You got it. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Allison.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.